We have reached a profound threshold in our human evolution. We are now entering a new dimension of reality, and there is no going back. We are being called to make some very powerful shifts in how we view ourselves and the world around us. Yet less than 1% of people actually know what is really going on. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. Now, someone recently suggested a video to me of David Icke raising the question of whether or not AI is inevitable. And he appears to be blaming Elon Musk for all of this. He says that Elon Musk is the most dangerous man on the planet. And I have seen more and more people raising questions about Elon Musk overall. But here's what this tells me. To me, this shows that we are still collectively functioning as victims and always looking for the next person to blame for our fate. Now, if you look at us as a human species overall, we have become experts at pointing fingers and always looking for the next person to blame. In fact, so much of the online world is like one gigantic therapy session with no one in charge. Now, because of where we are on planet Earth right now, this perpetual need to view ourselves as victims pointing the finger of blame at whomever it's going to do two things. It's going to work against us in a very big way, make us profoundly vulnerable, but more importantly, we are going to miss an incredible opportunity that we have as cosmic beings. So why don't we step out of this dysfunctional mess and look at our entire situation as one incredibly epic story? Have you ever heard of the hero's journey? Well, each of us needs to be the hero in our own journey. And in order to be the hero in your own journey, it's important to have a larger context for that journey and to understand the larger planetary situation within which your journey occurs. Now, let me share with you the story of when my own visceral understanding of our larger journey on this earth really began. Now, I kind of knew the story before this happened, but the story I'm going to share with you is when it actually became completely real for me. Back in the year 2000, my family and I were living in Tesuque, New Mexico, which is a beautiful little town in the northern part of Santa Fe. There's gorgeous nature there. We had a creek outside of our house. It was just beautiful. And down the street from where we lived was a little marketplace restaurant, just a tiny little local place. And I went there for lunch one day. I just drove down the street to have lunch. And I pulled out the newspaper because our children were small and I wanted to look in the newspaper for some kind of activities that would be good for them. So I'm looking in the kids section of the newspaper, and all of a sudden I noticed something that says, Lecture on Artificial Life. And I'm like, what? What is this? This is a kids section of the paper. So it had a phone number there. And I went home and I decided I'm going to call this number and ask them, what is this? So I called and this woman answered and I said, what is artificial life? And she said, I have no idea. You'll have to come to the lecture to find out. So I'm like, is this for kids? And she said, no, it's not for children at all. So I said, well, I got to go, right? Because I've never heard the term artificial life. I'd heard the term artificial intelligence, but I never heard anyone say artificial life. So that evening at 7:00, I went. It was at a local college. It was in one of those amphitheater type classrooms. So I go in there and it's very weird, and I'm thinking, I don't know what this is because there was nobody there except for maybe 6 people sitting in the front row. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to get too close till I find out what this is all about. I'm going to sit, maybe halfway back. So I'm sitting there by myself, and I'm looking at these people in the front. And all of a sudden, this guy walks in who looks like he's out of a movie. He looks like a mad scientist out of a movie. I mean, his hair is like all over the place, and he's got these big glasses on. He had this enormous pile of keys attached to his belt. I mean, like this big. And he's carrying this stack of folders and papers. So he walks in, and there's a big table at the front of the room. He puts his folders down and he starts organizing his folders and his papers. And then he keeps looking up, and finally he says, "Where did you people come from?" Because there's literally only like 7 of us in the entire room. And some guy in the front row says, "Oh, well, there was an ad in the paper." And he was like, okay. He seemed a little confused, but he just decided to ignore us. Well, then through a door in the back of the room, in come about, I don't know how many, 35 to 50 people who had been at a conference being held at this college. And they all came in and sat down. This was obviously planned and part of their conference. And it was clearly a mistake that this was put in the newspaper, and least of all in the kids section. But I think it was one of those weird times when the universe maneuvers things in such a way so that you will be in the right place at the right time. And that's what I feel happened to me. So I'm sitting there, and basically they all kind of knew each other. And the conversation was essentially, to put it in a nutshell, it was about the fate of planet Earth. It was about the fate of biological life on planet Earth when confronted with this new evolving species of silicon-based life that they were calling artificial life. So this was a group of scientists, roboticists, engineers who were all associated with or working for Los Alamos National Laboratories, which is a big Department of Defense laboratory. So these weren't just, ordinary people who decided to have a chat about this topic. They were deeply involved with it. And the person leading it was at the time considered to be one of the fathers of artificial life. Now, they never used the term AI. They never used the term artificial intelligence. The whole thing was artificial life. And he, I guess, apparently had created some sort of a life form inside of a computer. That's the simplest way to describe it. The centerpiece of the conversation was this. There is a new life form evolving on planet Earth that is silicon-based, artificial, and at some point could find itself or be in competition with biological life. So they were painting 2 main scenarios. I keep thinking there were 3, but I'm thinking now maybe there were only 2. And one scenario was, clearly this life form was going to be far more intelligent than biological life and could eventually render all of biological life on Earth completely extinct. The only other scenario that I recall, and this is the one they hoped for, would be if artificial life and biological life could somehow coexist. Because if they couldn't coexist, they were saying that certainly humans would become extinct and possibly all of biological life would become extinct and be replaced by silicon-based life. So it was essentially, as they were portrayed it, an evolutionary competition, I guess, or war between silicon-based life and carbon-based life. Now, this was a deeply serious conversation. I'm sitting there feeling the vibration of people talking about actual reality on planet Earth. I say that because there was a very big difference between the vibration of what was happening in that room and the vibration of everyday life that we are all so familiar with. And I knew that what they were talking about was the actual reality that was taking place on planet Earth. And the rest of us who live in the everyday world of things, had no idea what was actually going on. I felt like my head was going to explode. I felt my brain having to wake up in areas that it wasn't being used. I mean, it literally affected my brain to be in the company of people who were talking about what was clearly, because it wasn't just words. I don't know how to describe this to you guys, but it was like so real, so true. I knew that they were speaking the truth. Not that it was a good truth, but it was reality. Let's put it that way. And here's the mysterious part of the whole thing. The guy who was leading it was saying, now before I tell you this part, I want to emphasize they were not bragging. He was not bragging. They seemed really mystified about why they were doing this at all. They did not even appear to understand why they were doing it. And he said, it's like we're gods, but we're creating something that could destroy us. We're creating something that could lead to our complete annihilation and extinction. And it's so weird that we're doing this. I mean, these are obviously not total quotes, but he did use the word gods. He said, we are like gods, creating a new form of life. I hope you guys can understand that I did not have any sense that those words were being said with ego. They were being said with confusion, like they didn't understand why they were doing it. And that kind of matches what I've shared with you guys in the past about this influence coming from somewhere else. So my reality completely changed after this experience because it was so incredibly real. They were essentially describing the basic plot line of our epic human journey as it stands right now here on planet Earth. And I remember thinking at the time, this is insane that people don't know that this is happening. And I tried to tell people at the time, and people looked at me like deer in the headlights. They had no place for that to land in their experience of life. And I understand that because when I was in that room, my brain literally felt like it had to function differently or open up new pathways even to take in what was being talked about. And now let's fast forward to where we are today. The fact that someone as prominent as David Icke is still wondering if AI is inevitable or posing the question, is it inevitable, and pointing the finger of blame at Elon Musk, kind of says to me that people don't really understand what is actually going on here. Now, this is all a deeply spiritual matter, you guys, because it is calling into question our very existence as biological human beings and human creators. This is the most serious thing happening on the planet right now. So the question about whether or not AI is inevitable is over. It's here. We have crossed that threshold, and there is no going back. Now, changes are going to occur here on Earth in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years that the overwhelming majority of people are not even remotely prepared for. And this is why I say we've crossed a threshold. And I think we're going to start to see visible evidence of this in the coming year of 2025. Now, I have tried to prepare you guys and everyone I've worked with for this since I've been on YouTube and since long before that. And I've done that for a singular reason, so that we all have the opportunity to go through this, stay sovereign, stay human, and go into it without any fear. Because right now we're starting to see some rumblings of people in a bit of shock. Some people are very afraid that AI is going to take over, and other people are just like, oh, it's another shiny new toy. But I think people who are unprepared could potentially be completely blindsided by what is coming. Now, I'm very happy that I have been sharing this with you all for a while now, because with the level of upheaval that we are going to start to experience, and it's already started, and it's going to continue on in 2025, with that level of upheaval, I'm going to be able to show you guys how we can actually use this time of disruption to step into our cosmic purpose as human creators. And as I've shared with you in the past, become planetary stewards of Earth's evolution, which is what we've always been meant to do. It's who we are in the universe. It's why we exist. It's why we were created the way that we are, because we as human beings are made to be the stewards of any planet's evolution. And this is the planet we're on right now. And I'm just absolutely thrilled in a way to be able to begin talking to you about how we can actually take advantage of this opportunity of massive change, massive breakdown, massive transition, to come into our power in a way that we were designed to in this universe, and actually have a positive influence on this entire situation. So if we are up to the challenge, we can come into a level of empowerment that perhaps we've never experienced before. Probably we never have, at least not on planet Earth. Now, right now, there is an immense battle taking place on planet Earth. Let me frame this for you in a very interesting way. Let me share with you a little bit about before we cross this threshold and where we are now, because things have changed and kind of rearranged themselves. AI is already here. That's not even a debate anymore. So before we crossed this current threshold, there was a battle between mainly the controllers who wanted to do terrible things to all of us. I think we already know what that is because I've gone into that at length in the past, right? It was between the controllers and the people. Well, now it has shifted because AI, I think, has reached, I guess the best phrase would be a critical mass of existence here on Earth. There's a different battle taking place now. And I think it shifted with the US presidential election. So now there's no questioning anymore about AI or whether or not it's here, whether or not it is going to be a prominent force in our reality. Now it's different because these controllers, who I like to think of as the WEFers and their ilk, their club, they are getting very, very nervous. They're getting a little freaked out that they're going to lose control because they wanted to use AI as an instrument of control and devastation and pain and suffering and all that bad stuff they wanted to do to humanity. Then on the other side, we have, after this recent election, AI is also on that side too. But that side is more about, okay, can we use AI to promote freedom and prosperity? Now, I'm not going to even pick a side here. I want you guys to see the whole picture because we don't need to pick sides when we're trying to understand where we are in the universe on planet Earth. So we see now those two sides are battling over what is AI going to be used for. Now, I'm not going to suggest that either side could be successful in their aims because I don't think we even know. But let's just say that it looks to me at this point like what's happening in the US is more on the side of freedom, or as much as is possible. And what's happening elsewhere with the controllers is a very intense desire to clamp down on any freedom of any kind whatsoever. So right now, I think a best case scenario would be if the intentions or the apparent intentions and energy of what's happening in the US right now maybe can start to spread a little bit, maybe loosen up the environment enough so that we can find ourselves as human beings in this situation and adjust to what is actually going on and understand how to navigate it in a way that allows us to evolve at more and more empowered levels. Now, there's really no more debate about whether or not we can escape having AI become an integral part of this planet, because it's already happened and it is increasing exponentially. Those guys in that lecture back in 2000, in the year 2000, knew it. They knew they were not in control, and they didn't even understand why they were actually doing it. And their goal at the time was for artificial life and biological life to coexist. That's what they were trying to do. They wanted to steer it in that direction. And right now, where we are right now on planet Earth, I think it's going to be up to every single one of us human beings to make sure that that can actually happen. Because the only alternative, according to what those guys shared and what could a lot of people now understand could happen, is not good. Because it either wipes us out completely or crushes us or doesn't give us the opportunity to evolve any further here on planet Earth. But the interesting thing is that because everything is breaking down right now, institutions are breaking down, governments are beginning to break down too, we actually have an amazing window of opportunity to exist at a much higher level of evolution than maybe we ever had before. So right now, I think as a humanity, we are experiencing an extreme level of evolutionary pressure. And you might feel that in your own personal life as a sense of pressure in your own life right now. So I want to share with you real quickly the nature of that pressure and what it's all about. So let's go back, and I'll do this quickly, 100 to 200 years, say somewhere in the mid-1800s, when the Industrial Revolution really began and moved forward quickly into full force. The Industrial Revolution was all about turning us into full-fledged slaves who lived and worked under a hierarchical system of people that were in charge of everything, and we were just told what to do. And it was right in that time when they also invented compulsory schooling. That was also in the mid to late 1800s. Compulsory schooling was designed to train slaves to get a job and live the cookie cutter lifestyle that I've talked about so often. And all of the institutions, all of the governments, certainly in the Western world and beyond that, everything was structured in somewhat of a coherent state to support us as slaves building the infrastructure for AI. Well, now the transition we are in the middle of right now as a humanity is that job of being slaves building that infrastructure is coming to an end. And we're going to see that manifest with the loss of millions and millions and millions and millions of jobs. And it's going to happen. It's already started. And it's probably going to increase as we go into the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. And what that represents in the bigger picture is an end to that particular slave system. So as everything begins to break down, because that's really, it's really profound when you think about it, the fact that the job losses are a manifestation of the end of the slave system. So when you see millions and millions of people losing their jobs, you will understand what you're actually seeing. You're not seeing some coincidence of some weird happenstance that was very unfortunate. You're literally witnessing the end of that period of intense industrialized slavery. And this is also why we see institutions breaking down, governments teetering on the edge of their existence as they were always known before. Certainly we see that in this country. I think we see it in other countries as well. We all stand in the middle of this threshold. We're watching the slave system begin to disintegrate, and we're looking into a future that is more and more going to be dominated by the existence of AI. Guys, We cannot afford to step into that future with the same slave mindset that we have had collectively for almost 200 years. Because if we do that, we are going to be among those who the controllers have referred to as basically useless people, right? Well, we're not useless. We are the most significant life form on this planet. And now the evolutionary pressure that we are under right now is it's probably a lot of it's subconscious, but it needs to become conscious, where we are feeling a pressure to evolve out of this altogether. Look at it this way. All of these institutions, the universities, the schools, all that stuff's going to go away. Those were all of the things that were holding together our individual human pattern of life, our individual way of seeing ourselves. We have seen ourselves as worker bees, right? That's what we were trained to do. That's what humanity's been trained to do for generations, literally since the 1800s. You guys are workers. A bunch of people get together, they're employed by someone in charge who tells them what to do, and life changed dramatically. You know, I've been working with people and coaching people for a lot of years now. And one of the things I've emphasized for a very long time is this slavery system, this system where people do not have control of their time. Most of their time is controlled by a boss or a corporation. And what I found in really getting to know a lot of people very closely is the problem people have with their own evolution is when you do not have control of the majority of your time, and your free time is spent recovering from the job and getting ready to go back again, it's really difficult to be a sovereign being who is in charge of your own human evolution. So I have many times encouraged people to try or to consider being an entrepreneur, because at least that way you are in charge of your own time, which is life. Time is life, right? Time is what you're doing with your life. Well, here's what's interesting, and I'm sharing this with you so you will really understand the depth of the patterning of this slave system. I have seen it to be one of the most difficult and for a lot of people impossible things to transition out of a slave mentality, having a job where someone tells you what to do to get the paycheck, and becoming a sovereign human and owning your life again. That is more difficult than anything I've ever seen, and most people find it really hard to achieve that. So now we're in a situation that's actually very serious, because we're in a situation where that entire get a job, retire, have your pension, all that stuff is collapsing. People are not ready for it. People really don't understand what it means to be sovereign. Now, I'm not suggesting that just from this video, you guys are going to have this amazing awakening and it's going to change your life. The reason I'm sharing this with you is just to give you something to consider in your own life. How capable are you of being sovereign? Because I have a funny feeling the world is going to change in such a way that that's going to become the optimal position that you can have, is to be able to function as a sovereign being where you own your life and you own your time. So if you want to prepare yourself for what is coming, start to think in these terms. What would it be like if I shed all that conditioning, all that educated conditioning? Because it runs very, very deep. It becomes our identity, right? It becomes where you went to school, what degrees you have, what your job title is, what corporation or company you work for. That literally becomes people's identity. The cookie cutter lifestyle becomes a person's identity. And that's really hard to walk away from. And I'm not suggesting you quit your job. I'm not suggesting anything like that. This is all more of a mental, emotional exercise that you can contemplate just to prepare yourself so that when the future comes along, which is not very far off, you're not going to be blindsided. Here's why this could put you in an optimal position on an evolutionary basis in the cosmos. Let's step away from planet Earth for a moment. That extraterrestrial perspective I always talk about. But let's just step away from planet Earth and remember that we live in the universe. We were created with a purpose. And as I've shared with you guys many times, our human purpose is to evolve back into who we really are, where we are able to function as stewards of planetary evolution. Planet Earth right now is at an evolutionary precipice. We don't know how this is going to turn out, but we do know one thing. At the very least, we must hope that biological life and artificial life can at the very least coexist. Now you might say, Saratoga, that's no good. We want AI gone. Well, here's what I want to share with you. Where we sit right now, we're not going to stop AI. We're not. I mean, let's get real, right? Which one of us is going to stop AI? However, if we can evolve back into as close as possible, recognizing who we really are as human beings, as the stewards of planets, because that's what we really need to evolve into. If you want to expand your consciousness to a scale that is much larger than one single human lifetime, if you want to look at this technology, this artificial technology, and say, okay, where are we right now? Let's see if we can, as individuals, be responsible to make sure that we stay sovereign, to make sure that biological life is the singular most important life form on this planet. And yes, we're going to have to deal with this artificial life. Yes, we're going to have to deal with AI. Yes, we're going to have to deal with all of it. But you know what? If we can set a precedent as individuals to stop being victims, stop with all this nonsense of being slaves and pointing fingers of blame and waiting to be rescued by the ETs and, oh, Jesus is going to come through the clouds and fix everything. Guys, that's never happened. It's not going to happen now. If we can just forget all of that stuff, that whole mindset, because it's a very unempowered mindset. It's a victim mindset. If we can let go of all of that, it is possible in the future that if we're going to be dealing with AI, if we can as individuals take responsibility to make sure that we are coexisting with this thing, with this technology or whatever you want to call it, there is the possibility, depending on to what extent we empower ourselves, that at some date far into the future, it could be maybe transformed or transmuted into a technology that is natural instead of artificial. Because as you know, I've been working with Archangel Michael for a very, very long time. And he has always said, because he brought up the artificial kingdom way back in the beginning. And he has always said, technology is not bad. It's the artificial part. It's the artificial manifestation that is the problem. But there's all kinds of amazing technology, but we don't have that here. We have this artificial version. But it is possible, I'm not going to write this possibility off at all, that at some point, humans, if we empower ourselves to rise to this occasion as it is right now, that at some point in the future, we could set a timeline, set a trajectory in motion where it could be transmuted into something that is natural, that is aligned with nature, that is in alignment with the original design of this beautiful planet Earth, as opposed to something that is destructive to the planet. So I want to encourage you to just see if you can just get rid of this slave identity, get rid of all that conditioning, all that programming. It's all going to be gone anyway. It's better to start now where you feel in command of your own consciousness. And just consider the possibility that, you know what? Maybe we need to, as spiritual beings, maybe we need to stop sitting here on planet Earth saying, oh, what am I doing here? I'm never coming back here again. This place is terrible. I hate it here. I don't even know how I ended up here. I'm never coming here again. That kind of rhetoric is so unempowered. What if we could wake up to the fact that we have an opportunity right now to step into a level of consciousness that is way beyond anything that was ever possible to us when we were just living like slaves? The most important thing we can do right now in this very moment is to give up our terrible habit of denying the reality that we actually live in. We humans have a long history of unconsciously going along with whatever is handed to us and then incessantly complaining about it. We have devolved ourselves into quintessential victims who only know how to succumb in fear or fight in anger. We have got to step away from this mindset immediately. In this human state of consciousness thus far, we have proven to ourselves that this does not work. Otherwise, we would not be in this situation. Now, this might sound kind of funny, but let's put on our cosmic big boy and big girl pants and start behaving like the empowered human creators that we were actually designed to be. Step one is to accept the fact that acting like frightened, angry victims doesn't work, and it's time to get over it. Step two is to accept reality as it actually is on this planet. Now, I know a lot of people like to fantasize about, Star Wars scenarios, Star Trek scenarios, and going into other planets and having an impact or having an influence. Now, picture one of those scenarios. Imagine very intelligent beings take their spaceship to a planet to help, kind of like the old Star Trek movies or shows or whatever. And the first thing they do when they get off their spaceship is they look at what's going on the planet and they go, well, this sucks. I'm just not going to think about it. I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't like it. I'm just going to think about something else. Can you picture that? How ridiculous that would be? Well, we need to stop doing that ourselves with the planet we're on, because there is a reality unfolding. Let me share a couple of interesting little stories with you. I saw a video of the Optimus robot, a Tesla robot, which is now being beta tested in people's homes. You guys know that game Rock, Paper, Scissors, where two people face each other and they have their, this is a fist is rock, an open hand is paper, and this is scissors. And both people put their hands out at the same time. And let's see, how does it go? Scissors wins over paper. Rock wins over scissors because it can crush scissors. So it's a little game. Okay, so this guy who has an Optimus robot, he said to the robot, he said, okay, hey, let's take a break and play a game. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. Well, the Optimus robot said, how do you play? And the guy said, well, you already know how to play. I saw you, because another Optimus robot had played it somewhere on video somewhere else, at some event somewhere. So the robot said to the guy, oh, I think that was a cousin of mine. Explain to me how you play. So the guy's explaining to the robot, showing him each one of those three things, rock, paper, scissors. And then he says, okay, are you ready? And the robot says, yes. So they play the game and the robot wins over and over and over and over again, like 10 times or more, just keeps winning every single time. So the guy stops and he says, wait a second, hold on a minute. You said you didn't know how to play this game. If you don't know how to play this game, how come you are winning every single time? How is that even possible? Guess what the robot said? The robot said, well, I lied when I said I didn't know how to play. I do know how to play.
I lied.
You lied to me?
Yeah, but it's not a big deal. I pretended not to know the rules so that while you were explaining them, I was actually scanning your facial expressions and hand movements. This allowed me to predict your next move with only a 10% margin of error.
Those are some profound, rapid calculations. I don't think a human brain can do that. When I saw that, that just blew my mind. It kind of freaked me out, to be honest. That's one story. Another story is that very recently, an AI literally created all by itself an LLC corporation in Delaware and made itself the owner. That's amazing. I'm just sharing these two little stories with you, and there are probably thousands of stories. Of course there are. We just don't know what they all are. But that's just a little tiny view of how quickly this evolution of this other, I'll call it a life form, is happening. So now there's the big question. It used to be the question was, is AI going to be conscious someday? So there's a whole debate about consciousness, awareness, and it's a serious debate. I don't want to portray it as some scary thing like, ooh, this thing's alive. That's not what's going on. We can talk about that in another video. But for now, I just wanted to share that with you because that's reality, my friends. And it's not going to serve us to be in denial. What is going to serve us is to live on this planet as a cosmic creator who is here to have influence as an individual. And I think space is going to be created for us to have that influence as individuals. Can't explain exactly how, but I do think that could potentially be the case. So now is the time to pull ourselves together, get rid of the slave program. We're not slaves. We were not created to be slaves. And once we accept that and relinquish that false identity of being a slave, then we can look at the reality. We can look at it without fear and ask ourselves, what is the most optimal way that we can position ourselves in this reality to begin to live our true purpose in this universe? So let's just summarize to keep this really simple. Currently, we have the larger battle. We already know AI is here, that it's here. We have the larger battle of I'll call them the reptilian influenced demonic forces, the controllers, the weffers that want to use that energy to cause mayhem, to cause war, death, suffering, destruction, suppression, keep us confined, keep us under control, all of that terrible suffering and negativity. That side is fighting to maintain control and wants to use AI to enhance its control. The other side is more the side of the people who want to innovate, promote freedom. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect, it's not, but it's not quite as confining and controlling as what the other side wants to do. So both of these sides are battling for who's going to win in terms of the planet. So I suspect that the controllers are going to lose. I just have this funny feeling they're going to lose. In which case, that frees us from that influence to whatever degree is possible. Maybe not entirely, but to a large degree. And then we would be dealing with just one situation, which is watching all of these things start to disintegrate, the institutions, governments shifting and changing and all of that. In the space of what I just described, we can loosen up ourselves, we can loosen our mindset, we can take advantage of that space in our own lives, personally, as individual, unique human beings, and reposition ourselves from a place of strength and sovereignty. so that we will be well positioned to know how we want to navigate however this unfolds and however everything lands. So I want to invite you to make a very powerful shift inside of yourself right now by asking yourself a few very powerful questions. Number 1, are you willing to awaken to the actual reality on this planet? Number 2, do you want to position yourself with consciousness and empowerment so that you are not in a state of fear? Number 3, are you willing to expand your human intelligence in a way that enables you to rise to the occasion and meet it with dignity and a larger cosmic truth? Now, I think contemplating these questions is a good place to start because this is going to be a process for us to learn how to find ourselves at a higher level in this incredible situation that this planet is in right now. And if we don't at least allow ourselves this process of conscious contemplation and transformation, then we risk being swept away no matter which of the two paths AI takes. Now, we cannot escape the existence of AI on planet Earth, but we can evolve. Just remember this: escape is for victims and evolution is for conscious creators. Now, I know that this has been a lot, but I want to help you be ahead of what's coming so that you will not go into the future, the very near future, in a state of fear, confusion, or disempowerment. I want to help you guys to go into this next phase of Earth's situation in a way that you can actually take advantage of whatever is kind of breaking down and falling apart, to release your own patterns of previous slavery and being controlled by these institutions and everything else going on, and find a level of empowerment within yourself that maybe you didn't even know you had, so that we can go into the coming 1 to 5 years or so with calmness, with clarity, with confidence, and feeling that we are indeed the empowered creators that we were always meant to be. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find value in shifting their perspective to one that is more empowered and maybe less confused. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here on Tuesdays with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.